Hello, everybody. It is 6:38 p.m. Central Time on August 21st, 2016. Hope you're having a good end of the weekend. Just wanted to jump on here really quick and run down something that I see going on. And I've got a cat in here, so if she starts meowing, just bear with me, guys. I left the door open. Wasn't planning on doing an update, but something just happened here over in Japan that's really drawing my eye. And at this point, it's starting to look like we might have a situation developing in Japan. And to understand what I'm talking about here, you take a look at the screen, you'll see a bunch of 5.0 and greater earthquakes striking along the Izu Ridge over the past day. So you can see going into 48 hours, we have several fives starting just near Guam to the south at the 5.1 and 5.2, going north along near Nishinoshima volcano, the new island that formed over the past couple of years there. That's the 5.0, 5.1 reported there. Then, off the coast of Honshu, which is our megaquake location from 2011, we have multiple fives which struck, and a 4, or 3.9, that struck north of Hokkaido into Kuril Islands. This is all over the past day. Now, I'm going to turn this down. We're going to look at the last 7 days. And we'll let the earthquakes refresh. Okay, so wait for this. There we go. Okay, so now you're going to see all the 4s and 5s. Let's get the 4s off the screen and just look at the 5s and greater. All right, there we go. So now you'll see we have a deep 5 that was down near, and again, I didn't differentiate on the depth there, but the deep 5 down near Guam at the South Izu Ridge, kind of raised slightly high off the globe there, and then shallower, larger earthquakes creeping up to our megaquake location. Now, let me turn the rings down. Actually, let me turn the rings off. There we go. Okay, so you see the stack of earthquakes here? All right, now I'm going to open up a screen for you guys to see what I'm looking at so you can see my full screen. And we'll get back over to Earthquake 3D, and I can pull up the coordinates on any one of these. Let's just take the most recent. Let's take the 5.1. All right, see that? Miyako, Japan. All right, I'm going to get the coordinates on this. Oh, that's the date and time. I'm going to get the coordinates on this, and we'll go look it up on Google Earth to compare to the location where the large megaquake struck in 2011. So we'll get that open. And we'll put the coordinates in. These come from the USGS, so take them for what they're worth. Now, we could go look up the Japanese agency, the NIED. I've got a link to them down below this video in the description on the live stream. So there we go. All right, here's our Japan 9.0 earthquake location from March 2011. Let's get a line measurement tool to see how far that is. Okay, so 120 miles northeast, pretty much along the same type of ridge, though, right to the west of the drop-off. And this goes down 21,000 feet below sea level. So the top, of course, ocean level, and then you go down a 20,000 foot drop. To get a better look at that, let's come in at an angle. Meow. Meow. All right, so there we go. Now you can kind of make out that this is more of a cliff. And the cliff, to call it a cliff, it's a ridge. And this goes all the way down, and this is a trench along here, and it goes even further. It gets down to 27,000 feet off of Tokyo, and that's just about 150 to 200 miles off the coast of Japan. So I've got this turned sideways just so we can make out the ridge definition a little better. So when we see large earthquakes or swarms of earthquakes striking here, as opposed to down in the ridge or out here in the Pacific, we have to start to worry about the possibility of a coming larger, shallower earthquake. Now you just take a look at it. In proximity, this is the spot where we've seen past large releases in the past. This isn't the only large earthquake that struck, the 9.0, but also 6s and 7s struck here over the past several years following up the 9. But to see a swarm develop out there now, I mean, take a look at it. A large swarm and then more movement to the southwest. Let's go look up this 5.3. Nami, Japan. I'm probably butchering that, but let's copy the coordinates. Put them in on Google Earth. There we go. All right, about the same distance, a little less, actually probably about 75 miles south of the megaquake location. And here's Miyagi Prefecture. Here's Fukushima Prefecture. So you guys know about Fukushima and the nuclear power plant there. Well, it's now they have all that stored water there. If another tsunami comes in, you got to hope that that would not be washed out with all the other locations. Now, a tsunami would only be generated by a very large earthquake. You may remember back in 2011, before the megaquake struck, down here to the south, more near Tokyo, but to the west, right along the shores of Japan, there was a 7.2. And that shallow 7.2 caused a 3-foot tsunami. But nobody noticed. It was just a little 3-foot wave, came into the harbor, didn't cause any damage, and people walked away and just kind of ignored it. Well, there was a swarm happening at the same time of 6s and 5s around the same location where the 7 happened. And 2 days before the big megaquake back in 2011, when the 7.2 struck, I made a video telling everybody about the 7 and the swarm of 5s, and I said, we're not done yet. Got to watch for larger movement. Everybody accused me of fear-mongering and all this other stuff. 2 days later, the 9.0 hit just to the north. So, the 9.0 in 2011 hit just to the north of the swarm that struck with the 7.2. Well, now we've got a 6 and a bunch of 5s. Does that mean we're looking at a 7 or greater? I don't know yet. We're going to have to watch throughout the rest of the day. I mean, we're only about, I got 6 more hours to watch to see what else develops before I put out my official word tonight. But I just wanted to jump on now, make you aware that this is going on right now as we're talking over the past several hours. So a swarm developing out off the northeast coast of Japan, going down to the megaquake location surrounding the megaquake location from 5 years ago. Troubling more is the 5s going all the way down the Izu Ridge, letting us know there's major pressure in the region to begin with. Now there could be movement on either side of this swarm. So let's turn down the rings again and look to the north. Where does this take us? Right off the shores of Hokkaido into the Kuril Islands. And to the south, unfortunately, that takes us from Tokyo down to Kyushu. So the compensation movement would be a combined total between all the different earthquakes that struck over the past few days. We're looking at 7 days. So there's 6s and 5s, a stack of 5s and 6s, most likely a whole bunch of 4s that we just don't see from the Europeans or USGS. So what does that mean? It means we could see a combined total reaching upwards of mid-6 or greater to strike in one of the silent zones on either side in the near term. So there's only a few silent zones, right? So to the north, Hokkaido, North Japan, the North Island of Japan, going into the Kuril Islands and Kamchatka. South, Tokyo down to Kyushu, going into Okinawa, which is the island down here to the south, just north of Taiwan. And then there is another little spot right here in between these two clusters. And that, I guess, is just the North Izu Ridge. I don't even know the name of the location. Let's go take a look on Google Earth. Well, there's a whole bunch of volcanoes right here, but there is no, I don't see the Mogi Seamount. So just over to the Neomiya Canyon. But Hachinojima, all these different volcanoes here are little islands that have sprung up over the past several 100 years to a few thousand years at the most. We have a new island just formed in the past 2 years, about the size here, about equal to this, and that's Nishinoshima, which is down to the south a little bit. Let's see. There it is. And they've been doing many flyovers of this because it grew several miles across and now is a couple thousand feet high and several miles across. This was just a little tiny. This over here is what originally existed, and now this flowed out and filled up, and you can even see, there's still ongoing lava flows creating the island even further. This imagery as of 2014, and you can see it's erupting right there. All right, so that's Nishinoshima, and that's just part of the volcanic island chain that's being hit by a bunch of 5s, and it's just a sign that there's upwelling pressure coming from down below. That's what the original deep earthquake was. And then shallow upwelling movement striking to the north by about 1,000 kilometers, which is to be expected. So now we have to watch for adjacent movement. We hope for a swarm. You hope this swarm of 5s carries on and releases the pressure. But we're seeing it build up. It's going on for a couple days now, starting with that 6, now going into a bunch of 5s. 6 isn't normally going to cause swarms of 5s afterwards, which means that there's other pressure in the region right now as I'm talking. That's why the most recent earthquake, 5.1, marked in green, you can see here, just lets us know that's going on. So I figure it's a good time to jump on and let you know, because it could be rather soon. It was only 2 days between the time that the swarm in Japan struck in 2011 and the time that the large megaquake struck. Now, the people in Japan just had that false warning a couple weeks ago for a 9. Okay, we're not looking for a 9 as far as I can tell. The swarm isn't there to be sufficient for what we saw in 2011. However, the spot is the same. And the same thing is occurring, but it's just on a little lower level. So that could take us upwards of a larger earthquake. So I have to put out the warning now that we have to look for a combined total between the 6s and 5s. And if you take all the 5s into account with the 6, that could take us into mid-6 to upper 6, possibly even low 7. And if a 7 strikes and it strikes on land, that's going to catch people off guard. So get the word out now. Hope for a swarm. Don't cause any panic or alarm. When you warn people in Japan, let them know there's a reason behind why we're naming this magnitude now in the mid-6 to upper 6, possibly low 7, because there's already been a 6 and a stack of 5s. 10 5s equals 1 6. So 2 6s equals a 6.1. All right, so we start getting into that range, and I'm talking about combined totals here, not averages. And then if you add in the 4s, 10 4s equals 1 5. Does this make sense? So when you're starting to add them up, you have to say 10 4s equals 1 5, 10 5s equals 1 6. So if you have a 6 already and 10 other 5s, okay, well, that means that's a 6 and a 6 combined, which means you take it up 0.1. 2 6s is 6.1. 10 6s equals a 7. So we're going in that mid-range of 6, because if I get into the low 7, low 7 would be, I think, pushing it right now. If something else happens, I'll let you know. I'm watching closely, just because I'm not on here talking all day long and, not doing these nightly updates because I'm getting censored. Don't think I'm not paying attention. I'm closely watching what's going on, and that's just internationally. Secondly, the second portion of this update addresses California. So the big issue over here in Japan and the deep earthquakes over here in the West Pacific can play into our activity on the West Coast. Now, we warned a day ago 2 things. East Coast should show some movement, and the silent zone off the coast of California going into Oregon, again, our small 100-mile stretch, should show movement. Now, check it out. Look what's going on right now. Whole bunch of 3s struck over the past several hours across California and Nevada. Let's get all the smaller earthquakes off there right now. Just look at the 3s and greater. Okay, there we go. And make sure this is turned down. There we go. Okay, so let me turn down the rings so you can get a better idea where they occurred across the state here. Most of the activity in California, one of the earthquakes over in Nevada. Now, I went and looked these up earlier just to be sure, so when I get on now, I can tell you for certain each one of these locations is striking at a dormant volcano. And they're volcanoes that I've shown you over the past several days and week when the swarms have started near these dormant volcanoes. Now, why are these volcanoes being hit? I guess first you have to understand what volcanoes are being hit. So let's start with the 3.0 out here in central Nevada. Now, check it out. This has not been reported by the USGS. They are ignoring the earthquake. It happened 7 kilometers below the surface. They can't say it's a mine collapse or explosion. They normally try and get off with these earthquakes without reporting them. I can't believe the USGS missed a 3 in Nevada. So Europeans have it. USGS doesn't. Let's go pull the coordinates. Here they are. Those are the European coordinates. And let's paste them in. You guys can see what's there, and then you can understand why the USGS is not reporting the earthquake. So zoom in on the area. And I'm already aware of what's there. I looked it up earlier. Okay, so just a few miles away, right across the range, we have Thunder Mountain Volcanic Butte. And this is really impressive. I was looking at it earlier, and I'd never heard of it before. There's so many of them out here. But when you look at this, okay, this is obviously rising off the desert floor. But when you zoom in, you can still make out the tuffs on top of this, that at some point in the past, it flowed. And when it flowed, it broke out at the top, obviously. It found its way to the top, broke out, and we have igneous rock, basalt flowing out in all directions. And it's been weathered over time, partially covered with sand. So you can't really see the lava flow that extends off here too much, except for where the sand's been blown away. So it's ancient. right? This is an ancient volcanic butte. To call it even a volcano isn't kind of even doing volcanoes justice because it probably will never erupt again, right? Well, there's others to the south. Check this out. These are much more older than the other ones we were just looking at. This may have even been formed undersea, back when this was all underwater, so long ago. But you can still make out the tufts on top where this flowed out. And this had to have been pretty impressive. I keep talking about it over and over again, that when this erupted, whether it was undersea or above sea, that these flowed out like fissures, and that happened many times because there are mounds that go a couple 100 feet up, and this is not uplift. These are old lava flows, and you really can, and this isn't from wind erosion, guys. This is a basalt tuft where it's flowed over the sides in the past, and it was undersea. You can even make out the layers on it. Okay, and it's differentiated from regular mountains. You can really tell these old volcanic flows. So, Black Buttes Volcanic Field, Thunder Mountain Volcanic Buttes, and then we have several more that are not marked to the south. And it really does pick back up to the south with many more of these, but they're just not. Now, I don't know why they wouldn't have them marked, but I mean, somebody knows about them because they have facilities on top of them. You can make out the old lava flows there, but they're just, nobody's bothered to do the research maybe, or maybe they just haven't uploaded the place marks to Google yet, right? So let's get over here and take a look here, and then you'll see. Now that you saw what we just looked at over to the west, this is much more ancient. So the basalt has been weathered over time, it's bleached, it's got a whitish look to it. You have more over to the east, more of the same. Again, these all formed most likely underwater when all of Nevada, let's back it out and show you what actually Nevada used to be. Let me turn off my place marks. Okay, you see all these white lake beds? These are actually salt beds. They have high content of salt and silicate sand in here. And when we back it out here, you'll see that here's the Great Salt Lake, Salt Lake City, and you can see where the Great Salt Lake used to be. And this, called it a lake, is not a lake. It was a former inland sea that went throughout here, and it had to be more like the Caribbean with a shallow bluish waters that used to be in here. Some point in the past, this uplifted and flowed, and the whole inland sea went all the way up to Yellowstone, went throughout Wyoming. You can make out the watermarks on this. I mean, there is no debate on this. If there is, they just don't know, right? Like anybody who's going to say that this is not reality just doesn't understand. You can even make out where down here in the Grand Canyon, where there were levels of water that used to exist out here, and here are our ancient islands, and there is no doubt about it, this isn't from wind erosion. You can make out the old watermarks and the old lines here from where the inland seas used to exist. This all flowed out through the Grand Canyon and created the Grand Canyon, contrary to, they say the Colorado River created the Grand Canyon. No. All the water flowed out. You can make out where it flowed out through the Grand Canyon and down to the south, and it's surrounded by volcanoes. Okay, so the whole area uplifted at some point in the past. So that gets us back to the earthquake that just struck. Let's zoom back in on it. All right. And this may even be near a military range. That might be why some of these other volcanoes just aren't marked. I mean, who's going to get out there on the bombing range? And they bombed the volcanoes, by the way. So it's at the foot of Rocky Peak. Now, that's not a volcano, but the area to the south is. The whole region right here is, and that's where the 3.0 struck that the USGS is not reporting. Now, if that was the only one, you might say, oh, Dutch, you're just, oh, you're making too much out of the volcanoes that are there. But see the 3.5 over here and the 2.9? Started out as 3.8. Okay, that's the European coordinates. I know the USGS reported this one. So let's go with them. Here we go. Mammoth Lakes. I've shown this so many times in past videos. You guys have seen it so many times, but let's just put the coordinates in for the new people. Mammoth Lakes, Mammoth Mountain at the California-Nevada border. 3.8, 3.5 just struck there. Now, where is this? Here's Whitmore Hot Springs. These are hot springs. This right here, these are hot, warm. And the reason they're warm is they're on the flanks of Mammoth Mountain Volcano, which is a Smithsonian designated and studied volcano. It's also a ski resort. Right, take a look at it, but there's the cone in the middle right there. You can see it on a little picture there. And it's part of the Inyo craters and the Long Valley Caldera. Long Valley Caldera is on the flanks of Mono Lake Supervolcano. So Mono Lake Volcanic Field here, this large lake with the dome coming out the center. That's actually a past blast caldera. the Mono craters connect down to the Inyo craters. And when I say Inyo craters and Long Valley caldera, when you zoom in, it kind of just looks like mountains right now, or foothills, right? Well, let's zoom in a little bit more, and you're going to start to make out these are actually old volcanoes as well. And you can still see the cones. And the USGS has a whole bunch of information here on these different old volcanoes. I mean, here's the Inyo Crater Lakes. People are aware of this. There's a whole bunch of pictures. I mean, you know, people go out there and take pictures of the old crater lakes there from the volcano. And here's the volcano here. Deer Mountain, that's an old butte. But then these are obsidian domes. And they're pretty interesting. See this? Maybe I should click on the picture and make it full screen. See this? This is all obsidian rock. This was uplifted in a massive volcanic event at some point in the past. And not just this one. Take a look up here. See this one here? And this one here is called Obsidian Dome itself. That's the name of it. And they look at life on the moon. So again, obsidian, at some point in the past, this flowed up and was uplifted a couple 100 feet. Take a look at that pile right there. People have come in and taken pictures because, again, it's got to be pretty impressive to go up on it. And massive uplift due to the supervolcano nearby. Look at it in relation to a truck. Just huge. So earthquakes striking there. All right, that's 2 volcanoes. Now, let's go to the south. See the 3.0 here? Let's pull the coordinates. Little Lake, California. Let's go see what's there. I already know it's there. Longtime viewers, you guys already know it's there. But new viewers and people who are just now paying attention, let's show you. Because a picture speaks 1,000 words. Here we go. See this right here? Now let me turn off my place marks really quick first. Get these out of the way, because I marked these yesterday. A swarm started striking here. See what this is? This is an old cone. This is a volcano. And what's the name of this? Red Hill, creatively named. And this is the crater. Let's turn it around to 360 so you can see it. See that? All right, and the crater goes down into the center. And the whole inside of here is being struck by a swarm of earthquakes. Let me turn them back on now. I marked the biggest yesterday. And now 3s are striking here. So yesterday it started with 1s and 2s. Crept up to 2.2, then a 3, and then now another 3. So I guess that makes 2 3s inside the crater at Red Hill. It's not mining, it's happening many kilometers down below the surface. And here's another volcano right here. These are not mounds that humans made, guys. This is igneous rock. I wonder if we have pictures. I think we do. Yeah. All right. The top of Red Hill volcano. Yeah, that's red, all right. Wonder if we got a bigger picture. Sure do. Well, there you go. Okay, so this volcano. Oh, we've got a street level too. This is pretty cool. See this? I did this yesterday. We'll do it again. See how they've blasted the side of the volcano out there to have the road there? Here it is. So that coloring is accurate from the aerial and satellite photography. All right, so you got black cinder over here, black cinder over here, red here, ancient volcano, and there's many more. And see these black spots here, these mounds? Let me go down the road a little bit. These are fissures that formed in the past when there was an eruption. You can imagine these little spots split open and lava was spitting out of here, and it formed little mounds of black obsidian over here in the sand. And you see this like over in Iceland next to Bardarbunga volcano, where Bardarbunga was erupting and then all these other little spots started to erupt right around it, inside the little caldera itself. Same kind of activity here. So again, but Iceland entirely different. And you can see these. This is not mining. This is a spot where this fissured open and spewed out lava, and it did it here too, into little mounds. And there's other little spots over here, see? And here's the spots I was just talking about here. Okay, so this was a fissure, ripped open, spewed out a little bit of lava, and then it broke apart. The basalt broke down over time, and that gives us those black blocks of rocks sitting there out in the desert. Here's Volcano Peak right next to it, and this is the larger volcano in the area, Volcano Peak, and this is a lava flow that comes off. And I've shown it so many times to everybody else, but you can see this was a massive eruption in the past. When this erupted, most likely the others also started to erupt. It's happened in the past, will happen again. So right now, that's the 3 earthquakes so far, right? So we already looked up Nevada, volcano. We looked up the California-Nevada border, Mammoth Mountain volcano. Then we just looked up that location here, volcano. What's the location down to the south? Anybody know? Let's go show everybody who doesn't know. I don't want to spoil it. Southern California. What's that funny little lake there, guys? Anybody know? Anybody in chat? What's the big lake down in Southern California? Anybody know what it is? You've been listening to Dutch at all? Take a look at it. Okay, here we go. See these? We got pictures of it. See this? Obsidian Butte. See that? All right, this is a volcano. This is called the Salton Sea Volcanic Buttes, and they've kind of mined it out. Right? There's been a lot of mining and geothermal activity here, but the USGS and the Smithsonian Institute, they have it marked. You can read it. They just elevated it to active in 2012. There's a magma chamber down below here, and what they're doing is they're drilling down in here, and they're injecting water that then is steamed off and turns power turbines to provide power for the area. They're actually puncturing into the upper layers above the magma chamber. But out here in the middle of this desert, they have these gas domes that are, well, I don't even know really what to say about them other than the gas that would be emitted off that would be directly involved with the magma chamber down below. I don't know what they're using it for, though. There's mud pots and mud pits out here, and you guys are welcome to come in and inspect the area, take a look. I believe people can even go to the mud pits, I'm pretty sure. Don't know if we have any pictures of them, though. Yeah, there we go. Exposed mud volcanoes. Again, steaming, boiling hot from the magma chamber down below. So, a swarm striking right here at the Salton Buttes. This is on top of the thousands of earthquakes that have been striking to the northwest of the sea itself. Several thousand earthquakes striking right here where I'm circling my mouse, and they've occurred from the depth of the magma chamber, which is 15 kilometers down, up towards the surface over the past 2 months. Thousands. Just here, in a giant circle in the shape of the magma chamber, just a little bit off. Well, now we have a larger earthquake striking at the Salton Buttes themselves. So, all the threes to strike today on the West Coast, Nevada or California, are striking at volcanoes. What does that mean? It means there's upwelling pressure coming from down below the plate, and the pressure is coming from the northwest in the silent zone that hasn't been hit in the past few days. Got hit last week, put off a new round of pressure all the way over to the East Coast. We did see twos strike on the east. I was looking for threes, mid threes, but, saw a bunch of twos strike on the East Coast. Now we're seeing it backfill. The only other earthquakes to strike, and there's only a few. I just turned it down. Now you're looking at the 2.5 and greater. I'm sorry, 2.0 and greater. 2.0 and greater over the last day and a half, 2 days, let you know. The only other spots that were hit up here, the 2.5, that's Clear Lake Volcano. The Geysers, California, where they are doing the same thing as they're doing down south. They're drilling into Clear Lake Volcano, injecting water to power steam turbines. So that's being hit. Then to the south, we have one earthquake along the fault zone connecting these points. See that? The 2.5 right there along the coast. No pumping operation there. No volcano there. Strictly fault zone movement in between the points that are moving. And is there any earthquake I missed on here that I didn't name? Okay, the 2.1. Let's open up the coordinates on this. Reported by the Europeans here. Let's get the coordinates. I meant to look this one up earlier, but I just didn't have the time, so I have absolutely no idea what's there. It might be nothing. It might be fault zone. Let's see. Just northwest of there. What do we got? Water treatment. Excavation company. No pumping operations that I can see, but again, that would take probably a few hours of inspection. Yeah, nothing of any significance there. Let's go just quickly check the USGS. Or no, this isn't. Dang it. Well, most likely fault zone movement. I don't have a fault map on me. There is no pumping operation or volcano there. So that would be two of the smaller earthquakes along fault zone movement connecting between the magma chambers down below that are being pressed up. So what does it all mean? Off the coast, we have to watch for a combined total of all the earthquakes over the past 2 days. Or, 2 days. I would say 3 days, but we did see a little bit of movement up here 2 days ago. So for the last 2 days, there hasn't been any activity off the coast at all. Here's the last 24 hours. These are all the smaller earthquakes. So the smaller earthquakes match up with all the other locations I just showed you. They're just being struck by zeros and ones. All the volcanoes and just a few fault zone movement in between. No movement to the northwest, meaning combined total between all this should take us into the mid-4 range. Hopefully it'll strike out to sea. If it strikes on land, people will feel it. If it strikes out to sea by a few 100 miles, 100 miles, out here from the Gorda Escarpment where this east and west line is, going up to the first bend at the Juan de Fuca, the cleft segment is up here, so the cleft segment would be going too far, or right at the cleft segment, going down the split to the Gorda Escarpment here off the west coast of California. That goes into Eureka. All right, so there you go. That's a rundown of what's going on the west coast and over in the West Pacific. Didn't even address the Midwest other than the fracking operation is swarming after the movement we've already seen. Saw a bunch of 3s on the west coast. Now you see 2s in the Midwest. Maybe watch for 1s and 2s on the East Coast. Not a big deal. People won't be shocked by that. Most people don't even care about 1s and 2s. It's just proof that the plate gets moved all the way over to the East Coast after a few days' time. Pressure coming from the West Coast. Only other area I haven't mentioned, and there have been a series of larger earthquakes that keep striking here, is down here at the South Sandwich Islands. But that follows the 7, and the other 7, the 7.6 that struck over here in the West Pacific last week. South America, you've got silent zones. I mean, this is the last 24 hours of earthquakes from the USGS. If I turn on the combined feed back between the USGS and Europeans, this will show us our smaller earthquakes down south. But the silent zones still stand out. So, silent zone basically exists from where our earthquakes are at Chile, at the tip of Chile and Peru. And Peru apparently was hit by another earthquake that killed people. I don't know. I just heard that in chat today. I have to go look that up. Silent zone across Argentina and Chile border region. Why there? Well, we should see a new round of pressure hit here, again in the silent zone, middle point between the two spots that have moved. Well, the 6.4 is our termination point down to the south. If you follow the bend around the south tip of South America, you have to take that into account when we're calling for the middle of the silent zone. So, middle of the silent zone, where is that? That pretty much puts us down here at the very south tip of Chile and Argentina. And it'll be a combined total between the 5s and 6s down to the south and the 4s up to the north. So what does that mean? It means low 6. So there's only been a 6, a couple 6s. That's over the last day and a half. The 7, there are follow-ups off the 7, so they're not going to be like playing in like we would expect when pressure's coming over from the West Pacific. West Pacific, we have some silent zones as well. Take a look at it. See our deep 4.5 right here, raised high off the globe, and the shallow 5 here, and the shallow 5 here in Indonesia. Well, go in between these two spots. Where does that take us? That takes us down into eastern Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Solomon. See? We have to watch for a combined total between these. Okay, so the new deep 4.5 means shallow 5.5 to 6.5, since these are younger. All right, so these are, actually, let's just show you that. So the most recent earthquakes are here, right? Okay, so deep 4.5 means shallow 5.5 to 6.5 in a nearby silent zone up to 1,000 kilometers away, which is nearby, in my opinion, nearby 1,000. So that takes us over here. Again, same warren zone, middle of that silent zone, right? Between the two spots that have moved. Which two spots have moved? Well, the deep 5.1 here, Deep 4.5 here. Middle zone between the two spots right here, pretty much. Okay, we have to follow the fault zones too, right? West Pacific, far West Pacific, Sumatra, Indonesia, going up into North India. Check this out. No activity. That's the last 24 hours. Let's go down 48 hours. No activity. Let's go down 72 hours. Fours up in Kazakhstan, South Russia, West China. No movement, 3 days. Let's go down 4 days. Still no movement. 5 days. Still no movement except for a 4.8 in Sumatra. The middle point between all these spots that are moving has not moved. Now, either they're not reporting earthquakes, which I doubt that, or we're seeing pressure build right in the middle of this point that hasn't moved. Last 7 days of earthquakes, all that deep movement, take a look at it. All the deep, and then all the shallow 5s and 4s, no movement across North India. Here's India. Here's Nepal. You guys can make that out, right? Okay, Nepal, the little rectangle country here. Then we get down into Myanmar, Burma, Nepal. Okay, so watch out. What are we watching for? Combined total between all the movement that we've seen over the last 2 to 3 days. Take it back down to 2 to 3 days. Right, so we got 5s down here to the east, southeast. We've got Japan swarming out with 5s and 6s. We've got a cluster of 3s and 4s to the west. Well, middle of the point, middle of the zone. And again, the zone is from the 4.6 all the way over here to Sumatra, following the fault zones. Well, it bends back up, comes back around, bends back around, goes back down. That would be northwest Sumatra. This is technically India, believe it or not, here. These little islands. India has claimed these islands. So where Sumatra, Indonesia meets India, going up into South Myanmar, that's the location. It's a very small stretch, and we're only looking for a combination between the two. So again, that takes us into the upper 5, lower 6 range because of the 6 that struck up in Japan. If that 6 wasn't there in Japan, we'd only be looking for mid 5 at the most. All right, and one other place. Since we're doing a global update, why not? Let's go into Europe too. Take a look at it. All the 3s in South Europe. Going across Turkey, going up the Black Sea. This is the Black Sea here. This is Caspian Sea here. Let's see, Bosnia being hit. Also Switzerland being hit. West France being hit. And we have no activity across Italy. Okay, so you can see that clearly. No activity across Italy. All the movement over to the east. Movement to the northwest. Combined total between all the 3s takes us into a 1-4. And we have to watch out for a single 4 to strike down here in central Italy, east of Rome. All right, so next 2 days, keep watch for that. Hopefully a swarm will break out. It'll be a bunch of 2s and 3s, right? But you have to plan for something larger just in case, so get the word out. I know a 4 can cause damage, especially with stone structures over in South Italy. All right, so that's it, guys. So keep a watch on the silent zones. Silent zones are easily spottable by taking a copy of Earthquake 3D. And there's a free copy and there's a paid version. You guys are welcome to either. And use that to spot out your silent zones. The middle of the silent zones are the spots that are hit, the fulcrum point. So if you find a silent zone, look to that middle spot. Combine the totals of earthquakes on both sides. That's going to give you a relative magnitude to watch for over the next 2 days. Anything else? I don't have anything else going on right now. Go check my YouTube channel if you can. And guys, I don't know if you caught it last night, but I managed to stream out No Man's Sky. I was just testing it to see how it would work, but that was really cool.